cutting out the waste, fraud, and abuse. I mean, look what Blazing Golia is uncovering in the state of Florida. I
Right.
think it was up to $1.86 billion now that he's found, and he hasn't even gone to all 67 counties.
Hello, Florida. This is Joe Mullins of the Live Work Shop Play Show, and welcome to another beautiful weekend in the great state of Florida. We are celebrating this new year. A lot of big things are happening. We're seeing New Year's resolutions, many people going out and making big changes in their lives. Before I start with the show, I want to recognize the West Shore Shopping Center, West Shore Mall, right? The West Shore Mall, such an amazing place. It's under a lot of construction right now, but these shops are open. I encourage people to go in. Had an amazing meal the other day at PF Chang's. I'm sorry, Maggiano's. And today I had a great meal at PF Chang's. That manager there is phenomenal. Those businesses are so crucial to this state. In a state where we are consumption based, we need to support those businesses and we need to go out there and make sure that we are uh, doing some stuff. Local businesses, I agree as well. We need to support them. But even these chains, they hire a lot of local people. They've got people coming in and working. But just want to let the people know that the mall is definitely open here in Tampa. A lot of people think it's closed because of all the construction and all the chaos. And I want to encourage our local government. I'm going to say this right now. As a county commissioner in Flagler County, one of the biggest things I did to help businesses and help our community is get rid of all the fees, the challenges that businesses and people had to grow the community. Growth in a community is so important, and it's so important to be able to see these things happen as fast as they can, because when a business is opening, it needs to get open immediately. Also, want to give a shout out to Plaza Beach Hotel in St. Pete. Good friend of mine, Dave, out there. He has got an amazing, amazing place. If you've never been there, I recommend you going. Again, tourism tax, the tourism money going out there and staying, but just a beautiful little quaint community. We can grow an area without changing the beauty and the historical parts of it. That's the important thing to remember. One of the biggest issues we have in growth has been infrastructure. And a lot of people in Florida have come from different areas and they say, hey, we need to stop the housing growth in this state. We've got too many houses being put up. It's an interesting argument. It's an interesting dialogue. I don't think you ever can stop growth. I think people that think they're going to stop growth are going to be massively disappointed. I know if I could do that, I'm going to do anti-aging and I'm going to become a billionaire and I'm going to loan money to Elon Musk. That's what I'm going to do. Um, but, today, I have a very special guest with me. I've got Brandon Rhymes. Brandon Rhymes is with Platinum MVP team Keller Williams, and he also has Consumer Quarterback on our Salem Media, a great show talking about real estate and different things. Brandon, welcome to the show today.
Hey, Joe, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, man.
So, we're talking a little bit about the community and some of the things here. How important is it? Now, you've been involved in real estate. Your show really promotes real estate. It gets some of the myths out there. You got all these people going, "Oh, we need to stop building. We need to stop growth." They're not going to stop growth. We're under a housing shortage right now. You and I
That's
both
right.
know if DeSantis passes his tax break on homes, homestead homes, we're going to see a boom in the housing sales. People are going to go crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out. The elimination of property taxes on primary residences will be a major boon to our economy. I think you're going to see a lot of people moving here. In addition to a lot of times, there's the elections that happened up in New York and what's going on in Minneapolis right now. So in addition to the traditional migration patterns and people fleeing some of those states, coming into Florida. So it'll be very interesting to see, how that one plays out, because some of the legislature, some of the bad actors in the state are trying to water down the vote, because, as you know, it takes a 60% threshold to add that as a constitutional amendment. And unfortunately, there's some bad actors that are kind of watering down the vote potentially, with multiple bills that will not reach that 60% threshold. So I think that's what we need to keep an eye on, Joe.
It really is. And, you mentioned those New York, New Jersey, Virginia, where they all had those crazy elections. What about Miami yesterday? Miami for the first time in 30 years now. has a Democratic mayor. So you're going to see a lot of people going, we've had enough. We're not going to stay here. The homelessness population, if this Democratic mayor if they continue the trend of typical Democrat mayors, homelessness is going to become a major problem, and people are going to be even fleeing. And people always say Tampa, Jacksonville, Orlando has all this migration from the north. There's a lot of migration coming up from the south to us.
Yeah, yeah, I heard that. I'm from South Florida, a small town called LaBelle, just east of Fort Myers, and it's kind of close to Clewiston, Belglade, like that, just south of Lake Okeechobee. And that's what they're telling me. A lot of my friends and family from back home, they're saying a lot of the folks from Miami are moving up, and they're kind of buying up those rural areas because it's, of course, pennies on the dollar based on Miami-Dade, Broward County, what they're used to. Talking about Hendry County and some of those areas. So yeah, that's another migration pattern. People leaving those bigger cities, those more metropolis, traffic kind of ridden cities in South Florida to the more rural parts of Florida. So yeah, that's a true point right there too, Joe.
We talk about the bigger cities and the population, but even in the county that I was chairman of the commission, Flagler County, this is what baffles me. And this is where people need to stop and listen and understand. It's 100,000 people and they're complaining about growth. Can you imagine
Yeah.
100,000 people in Tampa? It'd be nobody here.
Right.
It would so why does 100,000 population complain about growth and 4 million population is complaining about traffic? Why are those two areas both have the same complaint? Why do you think that is? Now, as an elected official, I have what I noticed and saw was occurring, but what do you see as a person in the real estate field?
In terms of, I'm sorry, would you clarify just a little
What's
bit for me?
causing the the resident of 100,000 population community to make the
Yeah.
same complaint about the 3 million population community about traffic and getting
Yeah.
around the town?
Yeah. What's causing that? I think it's just the lack of infrastructure, potentially.
Infrastructure.
Yeah, you got infrastructure, you got strains on the water supply, and it causes problems with traffic, and then it causes problems with housing. You look at the limited housing. You alluded to that earlier in your opening monologue. When you think about the factors affecting that, and we've seen this before with when they sometimes propose these rent controls. It doesn't work. You have to have free market capitalism to allow for that growth, and then you've got to have good county commissions and city councils that will approve projects and allow for that free flow of capital, the investment and infrastructure, and for housing. And we already know that people are moving here to the free state of Florida. And if that bill goes through, or I guess the constitutional amendment next November goes through, I mean that's just going to flood us too. There's going to be so many more people that are saying, "Hey, look, I don't have to pay a state income tax here." And then now they eliminated property tax for primary residences. I mean, I think we're going to see a boom. And then also, what will happen is potentially prices could really increase because of the lack of demand.
Yeah.
I mean, for the increased demand and lack of supply. Sorry.
You're 100% right. In communities like Flagler County, and I name that because I was there, they're 87 to 92% dependent on the property taxes. They're going to really take a blow. But again, they've not focused on their infrastructure for years. When I got into office, I noticed one thing: they weren't talking about infrastructure. They didn't care. They flooding. They were ignoring it. They were closing their eyes. 100 population area of one of the largest counties in the state of Florida, having only 100,000 population in the whole county, should not be complaining about growth. They should not
Right.
have infrastructure problems if they were done right, but they weren't. They didn't do it right. So you instead of going back and saying, "Oh, it's done, it's doomed," and doom and gloom, there are ways to fix it. And some of the ways to fix it that you and I have talked about, you've talked about on your show, and you just mentioned, is to go to these developers that are wanting to come in and develop. And instead of, here's what I'd encourage the local official: when they come in and say, "What can I do for you?" That's not that the wrong answer is, "Well, you can take care of me and my kids and my wife, and you could give me a house in there for cheaper." That's the wrong answer. That's the answer that should get you put in jail. The right answer is, can you help spend some of this money that you're developing and fix some of the infrastructure drainage problems in the area. If not, it's going to cause flooding in the houses you're building. So take that. We need a wider road. Let them have their paving crew help make that road wider. Take money to do that. You've got an opportunity now to have the guy that's making the impact to the community be able to pay for it. And a lot of people don't see that. A lot of the government people aren't seeing that. They fight with them. They argue they want these impact fees. They take the impact fees, and instead of putting them back in the rural area or the infrastructure, they're putting them in stuff like their programs, their feed this program, their libraries, just stuff that doesn't make sense, and the money isn't going to help change that problem. When you've got 100 population community with the same problems the 3 million population has, that's screaming that we need to focus on government and we need to focus on cleaning up our infrastructure problems that we have in
Yeah.
Florida.
Yeah. And cutting out the waste, fraud, and abuse. I mean, look what Blazing Golia is uncovering in the state of Florida. I
Right.
think it was up to $1.86 billion now that he's found. And he hasn't even gone to all 67 counties. He's gone to some of the major ones like
Yeah.
Palm Beach County had 344 million of wasteful spending, call it waste, fraud, and abuse. Dade County was right there around 300 million. Right here in Hillsborough County, it was $278 million of excessive spending. So
Wow.
to your point, you look at where's the money going? Who's benefiting from it? And what you find is that when you peel back the onion, you see layers of nepotism, kickbacks, nonprofit organizations. You're utilizing. I mean, you're spending $100,000 for gay pride parades. Not everybody agrees with that. We shouldn't be putting our money toward that. So there's certain things that this money is just being spent in ways that it shouldn't be. And what DeSantis always says too is that just the amount of waste can be cut, and then there's other ways to fund it. And we're not talking about cutting. We're not talking about taking commercial properties, vacant land, all these short-term rental properties. Those are still going to stay on the tax rolls. All we're talking about is trying to protect. For example, the widow that's lived in her home for 35 years and her husband passed away, and she can't pay the taxes. Those are the types of scenarios that we're looking to protect. And I'll tell you something else. We got to keep BlackRock and Blackstone and all these firms from buying the single family homes up because they're taking inventory from the veterans and the first responders too, Joe.
You sure are right. They're making them and they're turning them into Airbnbs or rentals. Listen, we need the tourism. We know we want the tourism. We know it funds a lot. We want the consumption base, but at the end of the day, you can't have all that and be a residential. Have residents staying here if you've got all your inventory going up for short term or some kind of rental. Now, you're in the real estate market. You've seen a lot of people over the last few years because interest rates, I've never seen interest rates this high since you and I were probably me more than you when I was a kid. I heard 12 and 13% interest rates and I thought those were high. We're back at them. We're back at them. And people don't realize they've gotten a little better. They've come down a little bit, but we are nowhere near what we should be. If this is the time of year when they make the adjustment and the Fed comes out and makes the adjustment on the interest rate, how big do you think it will affect Florida if that interest rates goes down with a lot of people that maybe have just been sitting on the sidelines from moving their homes because they didn't want to refi at a larger rate?
Yeah, I think it will have that trickle down effect. You see it because it's also going to affect home loans, business loans, commercial vehicle loans, those types of lending. That's going to free up capital. So when you free up the capital, the business owners are going to spend more money. They're going to hire more people. Some people are going to be utilizing that to make those moves. So a lot of the people that have been sitting on the sideline kind of saying, "Hey, I'm kind of happy with this 3%, 4% rate I have. I'm gonna probably not gonna move if the rates are in the 6.5, 7% range. But I think if we can get it into 5.875, 5.5%, now you're going to get closer to the point where people will be saying, "Hey, it makes sense. Let's go ahead and move closer to the beach, closer to grandma's house, closer to work." And then they will make those moves. So I think that's going to have a lot of effect. And I also think in 2026 what we're going to see is the effects of the big, beautiful bill. There's so many things that haven't even really taken into effect yet. So a lot of that's going to be kicking in. You talk about deregulation, the tax incentives, the bonus depreciation. There's a lot of incentives. And then with what we're doing in Florida, so many people want to move here anyways. I think that's going to be I think 26 is going to be a breakout year for our real estate team here in Tampa Bay.
You've talked about a lot of interesting issues, and I'm going to talk as a real estate investor owning a lot of multifamily and apartments. When I see my tax bill go up, I can't go up on my rent that quick. I'm in leases, I'm bond to them. When I see my hurricane come through and cause my insurance to skyrocket, I've got to be able to go up. What will happen? I won't be able to go up that minute, but next year when we renew the leases, they're all going to go up and the price is going to go higher. People think it's greed, but it's a number of things that are causing inflation. I think you can control the insurance by making it a little more efficient. I think you definitely can control property taxes by watching the spending and the wasteful spending and cut all that out because I've sat in government meetings where they looked up and said, hey, let's just use the money, spend it. We built this library. The library, here's my point. What are we doing building a brand new $70 million library in 2025 when people don't use books anymore and everything's electronic? You don't need that gigantic, massive 100,000 square foot library. So why are
Yeah,
we doing that when we
yeah,
need to be putting that 40 to 50 million into infrastructure? They go, oh, it's earmarked for it. You can earmark and move the money to infrastructure easily because you can
yeah,
justify it helps with tourism, it helps with other things. I saw that as an elected official. It's hogwash, it's BS. If the interest rates go down, you're going to see people start moving loans, moving houses, moving locations. The hard thing with me is when the interest rates went up, I had to refinance some things, and I went from a 4% interest rate on a $5 million loan or a 2% interest rate on a $5 million loan to a 12%. All of a sudden,
wow,
and if you take the interest on it alone, let's say it's $2,000. Now all of a sudden it's $8,000.
yeah,
That's chewed into my profit. It's chewed into my income. Chances are it's chewed into where I'm now paying out of my pocket to own that. So these things affect people. They slow your
yeah,
growth. They slow the things down. So interest rates are important. Um, but I think what you brought up and what you bring up is the infrastructure. If we address and fix that, we'd have these at least 100,000 people population counties would quit complaining because if you've got 100,000 living in a county and you got 3 million living in a county, the 100,000, if it was similar, if we do things right and similar, that 100,000 would never have problems if they had the same traffic lights, the same drainage, the same infrastructure. People go, oh, well, they got more people to flip the bill. Well, then allow growth. Allow
yeah,
growth. Or for example, Orlando's water bill. Typical water bill in Orlando is like $75. The typical water bill in Flagler County in Palm Coast, where it's 100,000 population, is almost $200. Why?
wow,
Is their water harder to get to 100,000 people than it is to get to 3 million? It's infrastructure. It's laying it out and making sure it's done right. Growth has nothing to do with that cost. Growth has nothing to do with making it slower. It's more efficiency. Now, what do you think is some of the things the market needs, the state of Florida and other markets? Because as a commissioner, nationally, I traveled in every county in the country. And Brendan, I got to ask you this. Every county in the country has the same problem of growth, too much growth. Which counties, where are they moving from? Where are they coming from? I
yeah.
want to find the county where everybody's moving out of, but I can't.
Well, California, maybe. California is number one for net out migration, and we're number one for in migration. Yeah, exactly. And then you think about New York. I mean, I think the Mondani effect is going to be just really consequential up there, especially coming on the news that he just recently hired a convicted felon, armed
Yeah.
robbery felon to be on his transition team. So I think it's going to take a little while for people to really kind of figure out what's happening and the economics behind it and how that's going to trickle down. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Affordable housing keeps coming up as a topic of conversation, especially when you have our paramedics and first responders, folks like that, that are on, kind of modest wages, and they can't afford to live in the city that they serve. That's a problem. So I think that we're doing some things right, and there's always room for improvement here in Florida.
Well, you say affordable housing, and I want the listeners to understand that's not a bad word. I want to put something out there. We all need firemen. We all need police officers. We all need school teachers, retirement communities. Guess what? They've got people that they need to live there to take care of them. They need law enforcement. They need fire responders, first responders. They need ambulances. Need probably more ambulances than most areas do. These people are a little younger. They have wives, they have kids. They have a right to have that. These people they're taking care of had that at one time. They have a right to have that. And they also have a right. I heard a county manager one time say, well, these people can just live in a different county. We don't want them in here. You just
Mm,
said you don't want your firemen who'd risk their lives, their police officers that risk their lives, the veterans
wow.
that have risked their lives in force for the ultimate. You've just said you don't want teachers. You've just said basically you don't want any of those people to live in your county. They can come work, they can come take care of things, but then they need to go back across the county line to live because they're not good enough to live in that county. That bothers
Wow.
me.
Yeah,
That
that's
bothered me
that's
when I
not
heard it.
that's not a fair statement or a good statement to make. That's pretty ridiculous. And you want to have those different areas, and that's why they have zoning tables. That's why they have you have manufactured living for retirement communities and things of that nature. So it's a delicate balance. It really is. I was talking about on my show yesterday about the Everglades and the water and the way that the water flows, and the old John Anderson song, Seminole Wind, if you remember that, how he talked about how they made their plans and they drained the land, how the glades are growing dry. I mean, so that gets into the red tide effect. And so, yeah, there's so many things to balance when it comes to real estate and development, the water, the natural resources, and, that red tide blooms. But everybody wants to get their nice vegetables, their red tomatoes, and the nice veggies at the supermarket. But yeah, and a lot of that development, from what I hear, is coming from the Orlando area, pushing south down there into the Everglades. So yeah, I mean, you make a great topic. You as a developer, you've seen that firsthand, I'm sure, right?
I have, but we're long holders. So we go in and develop and we try to make sure we don't have future problems. I worry about flooding. I worry about things like that. So we do that a little differently. What I find interesting that you're saying, and it's just like what they say about the people not living there. This, if you want to create the myth that too many people are moving in and we're building too many houses, you complain about the infrastructure and you say we got to take time to fix it. If you take time to fix it, where are you going to get the money from if it's not from new growth? It's from the people that live there.
Yeah,
If you don't house the people that are working in that community and they're not quote unquote good enough, they're not good
yeah,
enough to live there,
yeah,
um, then how do you have those services that are provided? How do you have those? And let's just go to a point that the grandmother or the grandfather has a daughter. She's going through a divorce. The husband and her now are apart, or the son is, and one of them have to come live with their parents in Florida, and they got to bring the kids. Is that not a fair statement to say they got the right to be able to do that for their families? It's all about families. It's all about being
yeah,
able to take care of your generations below you, to us as Americans.
sure.
But if we cut that opportunity out by cost and we cut that out by affordability, then there's a problem. So workforce housing, you can make it, oh, yeah, it's the homeless person, it's these bad people coming in. That is not the answer to it. And that's not the truth. It's a skewed statement. And it's something
Yeah.
that happened. Do you let's talk a little bit about your radio show. Your radio show comes on when?
We're 4 o'clock drive time on 860 The Answer, 93.7 FM weekdays.
Now, what are the general topics you talk about on the radio show?
Yeah, everything we do it's all from a consumer advocate standpoint. So we're talking about things from a consumer standpoint, and how to avoid commission based advice, trying to help them make good decisions when it comes to real estate, credit, finance, estate planning, tax planning. We get into technology, Second Amendment. We talk about a lot of different topics, and that's where we have about 80 different categories and about 40 different show partners, aka expert contributors that appear on our show, and they all bring different expertise.
Now, Brandon, I've got a lot of people that call into the show and they talk about it and they go, "Hey, how do you find apartments down in Florida, places to rent? How do you find places to buy? The signs aren't the way to do it anymore. Certainly, they're still there to let you know that house is for sale, but there is a bigger movement now. It's social media, it's people buying homes and not even coming into the state. How do people get in touch with you to be able to have someone help them make sure it's a good area and a good investment and someone they can trust?"
Yeah, thanks, Joe. I appreciate it. I'm at 813-917-1894. You can call or text that line, 813-917-1894. Our show website with contact information there is consumerqb.com. You can submit an email form there at consumerqb.com. And yeah, greatly appreciate it. I would love to help you. We have off market properties sometimes that come up too. And you want to work with an agent that's going to be able to help you figure out what your needs and wants are and that fine balance between needs and wants and fitting in your budget. So we'd love to help anybody. I'm Brandon Rhymes, owner of the Platinum MVP team at Keller Williams Realty right here in Tampa Bay.
Brian, I want to thank you for Brandon. I want to thank you for joining us today, and appreciate you coming in. The Consumer Quarterback Show. We wish you all the success, continued success with your show, and also in your real estate company, Platinum MVP team with Keller Williams. We just appreciate all you do and help bringing in the right growth to our community.
Hey, thank you, Joe. I really appreciate it. And great job on your show, man. We enjoy it.
Guys, we want to thank you for joining us this weekend and remind you, when you want to come to the most beautiful state in the country, the reason it's that way is because we got strong businessmen like Brandon Rhymes in this state working to make sure that developments are done correctly, that growth is defined, and while we still preserve our history. And we also have an information source where he is getting out, sharing with people, and letting them know. Consumer Quarterback, listen to it right here on Salem Media. We love having you tune into us on all our shows, but we want to thank you for joining us. And remember, have a great weekend in the greatest state to live, work, shop, and play. Thank you, and have a great weekend.